Elsie Jensen here. Today for lunch we're going to make a basic pasta carbonara with peas and a cheesy flatbread and then start on a sourdough loaf for tomorrow. So I've got my water boiling and I'm going to put in some pasta. I'm just using this fancy pasta, but you could really use anything. Oh, Loki Broody, no barks. You could use anything you want. A lot of times people do it with just spaghetti noodles. So I'm just gonna put in some of this. This is just easier for my little ones to eat. And I'm gonna have this cook while we are prepping. But I brought my water to a full boil. I'm just gonna give it a quick stir so none of the pasta sticks on the bottom of the pot. And then we're gonna start prepping our pasta carbonara. I'm gonna turn on my skillet up to a medium, and I'm gonna add in about 1/2 pound of chopped bacon. When I'm only using 1/2 pound, I just cut it right out of the plastic like that. That way my other half can stay in there nice and neat. And I'm gonna cut up and make small slices here because I really want it to crisp up so that we have some nice bacon chunks in our pasta carbonara. And most traditional pasta carbonara calls for eggs. We're gonna be using quail eggs because I have yet to find regular eggs right now due to the egg shortage here. This is like week 4 of not being able to find eggs. Let me get these chopped up and I'm just gonna throw these in my skillet I have heating on medium heat. Perfect. Get it all in here. Then I'm just gonna flip my cutting board over and give my knife a quick wash because I'm gonna be using this to chop up some tomatoes and herbs for my garlic bread. So we're gonna have our bacon over here is gonna start sauteing up, and we're gonna make our base for our carbonara, or part of our base for it. We'll add a little bit of pasta water to it in a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna be using quail eggs simply because we are out of other eggs and they work pretty much just the same, you just need more of them. If you've never seen a quail egg, here's what they look like. They're quite cute and dainty. I'm gonna be using 5 to be in place of 2 eggs. So I'm just gonna crack my quail eggs in here and they look just like a regular egg, just smaller. They're a little bit harder to crack than a regular egg. But the nice thing is they actually have, I feel like, a bigger yolk to egg white part, so that will be perfect for a carbonara because you like the yolkiness is a little bit better. It makes a better cheese sauce. There we go. And then I just got one little eggshell in there, perfect. I'll put those to the side, and now I'm gonna get some tongs, and I am going to toss our bacon, spread it out so it can crisp up on our saute pan, because I want to twist it up nice, and I'm gonna give our noodles just a little stir. I like to stir frequently just so I don't have noodles stick to the bottom of my pan. Okay. So I've got 5 quail eggs, which is the same as 2 regular eggs. And then I'm going to add about 1/2 cup of heavy cream to our mixture. Let me get my measuring cup right over here. And then we'll be adding some hot pasta water in a little bit to it as well. And simply the reason why we add the pasta water to this mixture before we'll throw it in our pan is we're gonna add 1/2 cup. Is so that it doesn't, your eggs don't curdle and make kind of like scrambled eggs instead. So you add a little bit of temperature to your egg base first, and it won't cause your eggs to curdle when it hits the hot temperature. Let me stir this guy. And then I'm gonna grab a fork and I'm gonna mix my eggs and my cream together. It's really important, you wanna make sure you mix it up well. Otherwise, you won't have like a custardy type base. The only way I can really describe it, like a carbonara is a bacon pasta with a rich kind of savory custard sauce, I should say. But it will have Parmesan cheese, cream, garlic, you know, eggs, a little pasta water, bacon, or pepper, salt. So just delicious. And then I'm gonna mix in about a half a cup of Parmesan cheese. Whoop. And I'll stir that up. I'm using shaved Parmesan cheese, but you could also do shredded or the fancy one. It will all melt the same. Avoid the ones in the plastic like jars. That doesn't melt as nicely. Give this a good stir. Perfect. And I'm gonna give my noodles one more stir, just so they don't stick. And I'm now stir up my mixture just to make sure this.
What are you cooking?
I'm cooking pasta carbonara with peas. And then I'm gonna make a cheesy kind of garlicky flatbread. And then we're gonna work on our sourdough loaf for tomorrow. So let's prep out our flatbread. I'm gonna get a baking dish out of the oven. And you could always make your own flatbreads if you want. I do it a lot, but for today's sake, I'm just gonna use some naan. I love naan. I think it actually tastes better than like a pita pocket or whatnot. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of naan here, and then I have some soft, like room temperature butter, and I'm just gonna rub it all on my naan, just like this. And then I'm going to sprinkle it with just a teensy bit of garlic salt. Perfect. And now we're going to add some sliced up tomatoes and fresh basil, and then we'll top it off with some mozzarella cheese and give this a nice stir. Don't want it to burn. So I'm gonna I've just got these cherry tomatoes. They're nice, perfect. Just gonna grab a handful out. You don't need too many on there because they're just really gonna give pops of flavor on our cheesy bread. So think of it almost kind of like a pizza Margherita, which is a fresh basil, tomato, and mozzarella pasta, or a pizza. So I'm just gonna do a couple, like, I'm putting them, and I'm doing them in little circles like this, so that they will fry up nicely, or bake up nicely. And you don't need too many of them. Perfect. Maybe one more I'll cut with this. And I think we'll keep that one. And then I'm gonna pick off some fresh basil. The store has been out of fresh basil as well. So I've been trying to harvest off this plant for the last couple of weeks, and it's not growing as nice as it does in the summer here. There we go. And I've got some fresh basil. You could use dried basil, it's just not going to taste as good. And you would use a lot less. So I've got about a tablespoon of fresh basil here, and I am just gonna give it a quick little chop over here so that it will, when you take bites of it on your flatbread, you're not like taking a bite and a whole leaf coming with you, but more like the flavor of the fresh basil will be spread out nicely. Perfect. And I'm simply going to now layer my cherry tomatoes that I sliced up and just kind of evenly spread them all over my naan. And then I'm going to take my fresh basil. I'm going to sprinkle this over as well. A little bit more. Perfect. And then we're going to top it off with some mozzarella. I'm a really big fan of Tillamook mozzarella cheese. In there, I just feel like theirs is like a freshly cut. I don't know, I just feel like it tastes better and melts better than like Sargento or the other cheeses. I also like Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel has good cheeses as well. And I've just got a nice coat of mozzarella on there. We'll give my bacon a stir. It's crisping up nicely, which is what we want. Perfect. And then I'm just gonna put a little bit more. I like to do a little garlic salt right on the top so you get it on the bread and on the cheese. Just a little bit, not a lot. Perfect. And we can go pop this guy in the oven. I have my oven set at 425 on the air fryer setting, which is essentially like a fancy convection setting. So it's gonna blow the heat around equally but cook it at a high temp. And I'm gonna put mine towards the bottom, and that will allow it to kind of crisp up and the cheese to melt nicely. And now we're gonna work on our pasta carbonara. But before we do that, I'm just gonna check on one of my noodles and see how they're cooking. I have a feeling they still need a lot more time. Yeah, they're still pretty firm. So probably about 4 or 5 more minutes. We've got our lovely bacon crisping up. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to add in some minced garlic. About a teaspoon. Put it right in that garlic, or in that bacon grease. Let it saute up. I'm gonna give it a good stir around. Beautiful. And then we're gonna add our peas so that they can cook up and cook in the fat of the bacon as well. And I'm gonna add about, I would say, a half a cup of frozen peas. Not too many, but just enough to give it a pop of color, and I've snuck some veggies in for my boys. And now they're gonna sear up nicely and bubble well. That's because they're frozen, so they'll cook up fast. Perfect. Now I'm gonna stir it. Now we're gonna start making our cream base. So I'm gonna turn my skillet down just a little because I don't want anything to burn. And you know how we mixed together about a half a cup of cream. I had 5 quail eggs, which is the same as about 2 eggs, and some Parmesan cheese. Now, before we pour this mixture in here, we need to add some warm water to it. And that way, it just doesn't curdle when you add it to the pan. Turn this down low. And essentially, I'm just gonna stir it while we add it in a little bit at a time. And this is just going to bring my whole mixture as temperature up. And this is just really important so you don't curdle your eggs in your pasta. Because otherwise you'll have like scrambled egg carbonara. So I'm just gonna do 1 more spoonful. It's about a half a cup of warm pasta water. You wanna use pasta water because there's actually starch from the pasta you're cooking, and that's gonna help thicken your sauce. So that's kind of like a real trick that chefs like to use to help make their sauce nice and rich and velvety, is they don't use regular water, they use pasta water because it does have that starch in it. So now we have heated this up. I'm gonna give this a quick stir. Nice. And then I'm just gonna pull it off the heat for a second as I get a whisk out, and we're gonna whisk this together in there. And I'm using a non-stick pan, and I find that that's great for making sauces and whatnot because you don't have stuff burned to the bottom of it. And so I'm gonna just really stir this in fast. Beautiful. And this is gonna have a rich flavor from the bacon, like drippings, and the cream, and the Parmesan cheese. Excellent. Whoop. And then I will add it back over to heat once I get it in. I just don't want it to be so hot that it's gonna instantly scald my stuff, because cream scalds very easily. And now I'll add it back over, and I've got it on a low heat. And I'm gonna stir it, and I'm gonna add some spices to it to season it. So I'm gonna add a little bit of garlic salt. You'll probably just need about a teaspoon or so. I'm just gonna give it a good shake. And then a little bit of pepper. You can use fresh ground pepper. I'm just using ground pepper because it's a bit more mild, and my little ones don't like their food too spicy. And now I'm just gonna stir it as I cook. And I'm cooking it over a low heat right now because, again, I don't want my cheeses or the milk to burn, which can happen when you're cooking over high heat. Dairy tends to burn easily, or you can get like where it forms like a scorched top to it. And I'm just gonna stir it, and I'm going to grab a little spoon and give it a quick taste. Make sure it has my seasonings in it, and we can go check on our, excellent. We can go check on our flatbread and see how it's doing. Perfect. I'm now gonna move it up to the top one. I've got my bread heated up, and I'm gonna move it up, and it will be done in probably a minute or so. I just wanna wait until I have a nice bubble and browning in the middle of as well. Looking beautiful. So that will be done in about a minute or so. And I'm gonna you can see our carbonara sauce is starting to boil, which is perfect. I'm gonna turn this guy off because if you overheat it, it will start to curdle, and you don't want that. Let's check our noodles over here and see how they're cooking. Give them a good stir. They're looking more tender and soft. So I'm gonna pull one to the side and blow on it and try it. Perfect. Another key to know is if you don't want to bite into it, you can cut it in half, and if you still see white in the middle of it, it means it's not cooked all the way. So my noodles, they are perfectly cooked. They're al dente just the way I want, which means they're soft but still firm. And I'm going to drain it right over here. Give it a good shake, any excess liquid out, because that will just dilute my creamy sauce. And I'm just gonna add it in and really coat it. Beautiful. Nice, and this is a nice, rich, you can see how creamy it is, and that's from the butter or the bacon drippings and the cream and the Parmesan cheese. Beautiful. Perfect. Now we have our pasta carbonara. Excellent. My kids will be very happy. They've been a little bit under the weather today, and they've been wanting some noodles for lunch, so they'll be happy with this, and they love bacon. So I've got our pasta carbonara done. I've turned off my heat. Let's grab our flatbread out. We'll plate that, and then we're gonna work on our sourdough loaf for tomorrow. And just the steps. Sourdough takes lots of steps. It's a multi-step process that takes time, but it's really, really easy. Beautiful. Here's the bubble that I wanted right in the middle, the cheese. Excellent. So I'm gonna turn off my oven. Grab this out. And let it sit for just a second. And while it's sitting and cooling, give my guy a little stir over here. Beautiful. You can see it's still nice and hot and steamy. I'm gonna let it sit. We're gonna make our sourdough starter, our bread, and this will take like hardly any time. But what we do is we like to be precise when I'm doing it. You can use measuring cups, but I'm gonna use a scale so that I can use the exact measurements. So I'm gonna put my bowl on, and then I'm gonna tare it or tar it. I'm never sure how you pronounce it, just to make sure it says 0. Perfect. And then we're gonna start by adding, I'm gonna get a spoon, 100 grams of sourdough starter. So I fed my sourdough starter earlier this morning so that it's nice and bubbly. See if I can pull a spoon out, and you can kind of see it's very bubbly, which is what we want. You want a good bubble on your starter. I'm gonna add 100 grams. And the reason why we do the scale is baking is one of those cookings that you have to be more precise in. Okay, I've got a little bit more, so I'm gonna take a spoon out and a little bit precise in. Okay, I've got a little bit more, so I'm gonna take a spoon out and a little bit out. A little bit more. Let's see if I can be exact. Perfect. 100. Amazing. So I got 100 grams of this, and I'm gonna tear it again because you just wanna always start back with 0. Whoops. And now I'm gonna add 375 grams of warm water, which I can pour a lot more, and then I'll be more careful towards the end. But again, baking is more of an exact science than cooking, which is more about flavor profiles. So, and you want to use warm water because it will help the flour absorb better. Ooh, very good. 377. I will say that's pretty awesome. I'm gonna tear it, and now I'm gonna add 15 grams of salt, which is a pretty good amount, but you're gonna want this for it. You can add a little bit less if you want. Well, that did not read it, but I know it was about 15. I'll put a little bit more in. There we go. Oh, 14 there it was. And then we're going to add 500 grams of bread flour. So you're gonna wanna make sure you use bread flour. I'm just gonna give this a quick stir. That way it will be easier to mix it. So I'm mixing my starter and salt and warm water together. Perfect. I'm gonna put it back on here, turn it on, and we're gonna add 500 grams of flour. Oh, why is it messing up right here? I might add it in a separate bowl and then mix it in. There we go. I'm gonna tar it. I'll get another bowl, and we'll just add it in here, and then we'll pour it in there. It's wanting to mess up with my bowl for some reason. Okay, so we're gonna add 500 grams of bread flour. Bread flour has more gluten in it than all-purpose flour. Therefore, it's going to allow your bread to have more elasticity and just be more stretchy and have a good pull on it. So we're adding 500 grams, which is probably a little bit more than 3 cups. Let's see, we're at 400 right now. And we're almost there. So close. 500. Amazing. Cheer myself on. And now we're just going to add this 500 grams to our dough. And I'm actually, if you don't know what this is like a Danish whisk or a dough whisk. And it just makes it a lot easier to stir up your dough than using just like a wooden spoon or whatnot. It mixes quite nicely, as you can see. So I'm gonna have this. See how beautiful that is mixed up for it? And then the trick is with this, is you mix it, and then we are going to let it sit for 30 minutes. We'll fold it like 4 times into each other, sit for 30 minutes, fold it 4 times, sit for 30 minutes, fold it for 4 more times, and then sit for another 30 minutes, and you fold it for 4 times. Then we will put it in like a nice spot, and I'll let it rise until it's doubled, about 6 hours. And then after that, I will form it and put it in my banneton, and I'll pop it in my fridge until I'm ready to bake it. So there's just a lot of wait time, but it's super easy to make. So I've got it all mixed up right here, which is perfect. So I'm going to let this sit, and in 30 minutes, I will fold it onto itself.
Got a question, is that sourdough?
Yes, that is sourdough. So we're making a loaf for tomorrow, since it takes a lot of sitting time because there's no yeast in it. It uses the natural occurring yeast in flour. But let's plate up our dinner or our lunch here. And gotta get some out of the dishes. Okay, so we have our beautiful pasta carbonara. And you can see it with bacon, peas, and some Parmesan cheese. And we used quail eggs today because we didn't have any regular ones. And then wipe this off. Yummy, look at this. I'm gonna take it up so you can see it. Beautiful brown crust on the bottom. It's a little hot, guys. I'm gonna pop it over. This is where I cut my fresh herbs. And so I can cut it in. But it's kind of like a flatbread pizza Margherita. We used mozzarella, fresh basil, and tomatoes. And look at that nice melt. Delicious. Let me get a fork and try the pasta carbonara. Beautiful. Excellent. Thank you guys for joining us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I do live cooking shows every day. Today we made our flatbread pizzas with, we used naan, mozzarella, tomato, and basil, and some butter and garlic salt. And then we made pasta carbonara with bacon, eggs, cream, fresh Parmesan, pepper, some garlic salt, and we cooked that all together. And then we worked on our sourdough bread, which we will be doing the folding here in a little bit, and folding it back and forth for the next couple hours, and then we'll let it sit and cook later. But again, thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live shows every day for you guys.